In this video, I want to actually start with the cheat protection of our line trace. So we're going to do a basic check and see if the camera location we pass in, better yet the camera start, is within X distance of our follow camera on the server. So here we're going to check is if camera start distance. I don't know why I'm doing, actually, what is it? We do, no, we're going to use the ukismet math library. So ukismet math library vector distance, and as you can see, it should take in two vectors. So camera start and get follow camera, get component location. So if you can't use ukismet math library, you have to go up here and include kismet/kismet math library.h. Thank you, writer. And this is what we're going to return. So we're going to return the distance. We're going to check and see if the distance is less than, what do we want it to be less than? Less than, let's do, I don't know, 150 centimeters. That's going to be kind of our breaking point. So we can actually check this. Alt F11. So on the client, press F, and nothing happens. We're still good to go. But that's because we have zero lag or anything like that. So, or we're not trying to cheat as well. So we can actually spoof this. So we're going to take our start and let's actually just modify the Z on it. So start.z, let's just increase it. So we're going to increase it by, we're doing 150 for the distance. Let's do 300. So this is going to bump up our Z after, what's the issue now? Plus equals, my bad. Alt F11, this is going to bump up our Z location when we pass it to the server. So in theory, it should kick us. So I press F, and nothing actually happened. Oh, there it goes. It just kicked us out of the server, and we are back to being by ourselves. So I got myself confused a little bit. So it's only going to trigger if it hits something. So if I look up and my line trace hits nothing, it's fine. When we actually hit something, that's when we call our server RPC, like here. So we perform our line trace. It returns true if it hits something. We are not the server, so we run the else statement. We modify our Z to quote unquote pretend to cheat. So we crank it up by 300 centimeters. In which case, when we hit this, it kicks us out of the server because we are, well, either we have really, really bad lag or we're just flat out cheating. So that is now set up. And let's see, what was the other thing I wanted to do? All right, we want to create our pickup interface. So we're just going to create the class for now. We don't have any real way to use it until we create just a basic class for items. So in our C++ classes, let's go ahead and create a new class. It's going to be Unreal Interface. So scroll all the way down, make it public, and let's call this one, I don't know, items. So, and no, not items. I don't know if core is, we'll just do interfaces. That's fine. So let's give this a name of Interactable Interface. Create the class. And obviously it's going to take a while. And in my case, it's going to launch Visual Studio, which is very annoying because I am not using it. So here in a second, we'll probably see Visual Studio loading, but we now have our .cpp and our .h, and Visual Studio is not actually opening. That's quite nice. So we want to open up the header in the .cpp. And ultimately, we really don't need the .cpp, but let's go ahead and fix the include path because obviously it can't find it. So we're just going to add public to the start. All right, you're going to complain about that. Public, no. Interfaces. Why can I not find the interactable interface? That's an interesting one. I'm going to comment that out for now. Close down the editor and recompile. Huh. Oh. It's not that important, thankfully, because we're not going to be actually using the .cpp at all. So I'm going to close it. Now, pretty much, as you can see, we add interface functions to this class. So we make a bunch of public functions that we want to have easily callable through different classes. So for example, when we create an item class, that item, we may have a subclass that inherits this interface. And if it does inherit it, all we do is we call whatever function we create here. So we're just going to create a function. We're going to call it void interact. And that's going to be it. Like, that's literally all there is to it. So we can build and we're good to go. So there's really nothing special here. And now we can actually go ahead and create our item class. This is going to be of the type actor. We're going to make sure it's set, replicate and all that fancy mumbo jumbo. So again, let's create a new class of the type actor. Let's call this one, we'll put this in a folder called, I don't know, actors. Again, make it public. And let's give this a name of item. Create the class. Alrighty, head back into your IDE. We have our new folder. And we are probably going to have to fix the include paths, unless this one wants to actually work. So first thing we want to do, disable tick. We have no reason to use it. Delete the tick functions. And we seem to be good. So I'm going to go to close down the editor because I plan on compiling. Let's go ahead and build, make sure we're good to go. Which we are. So let's go to our item.h. So we want to add on to this. We want it to inherit from our interface. So we're going to actually include our interfaces, interactable interface.h, and we want to inherit it. So we're going to inherit from interactable. Is it interactable? I think it's interactable interface in this case. Or is it interact? I'm not entirely sure. Anyways, let's make our function here for interact. We're going to make it virtual so that way we can override it. And in item.h, make a public section. We're going to do virtual void interact, and we override it. So let's go ahead and inside the interact, round a log. So interacting %s, so we can print out the name of this actor. So this, or better yet, get name, because I'm trying to get out of that habit. And we have to dereference it to print it out. So let's compile and see where I screwed up. Alrighty, missing. Yeah, that's my bad. So it's public interactable interface, then compile. Alrighty, we're met with these errors here. And if I'm recalling correctly, from a while back, we have to go back to our interface. We actually have to add a body to it. So now let's give it a try and see if that's why. I hope it is, because I cannot exactly remember. Okay, so that was it. So we have our interactable interface there. We are inheriting it and overriding it. So let's go to our .cpp for our character. And in the server interact implementation, we have our actor. So what we can do is test it. So if, actually let's include it first. We're going to include our interfaces, interactable interface. So if, what is it? Hit actor implements, and I think that's template. So interactable interface. Let's see. Does this return anything? Okay, returns true. I believe we can we would just cast this. Okay, but instead of casting it, I had to look this up because I couldn't remember. Because in another game, basically you can cast it to Interactable interface, and if the cast is successful, you can call it directly on that, or you can do it this way, which is Interactable interface, call the interact, and we pass in, well, the caller. So pretty much the actor, which is hit actor. But there's an issue here, so it's execute, or is it Interactable? No, which one was it? Okay, so Interactable interface, colon, execute, underscore, interact. And make sure I'm spelling interact correctly. Which I am. Okay, so I am missing something quite odd. Because that should allow me to fire it. Okay, I did a quick research, so that's only going to actually be for if I made this function blueprint interactable, or blueprint implementable, or blueprint callable. So in our case, because it is not, we cannot do it that way. So what we're going to do instead is simply cast it. Now, because casting also has a null pointer check, what we can do is we don't have to do the hit actor check beforehand. All we have to do is interactable interface equals cast to interactable interface, and we're going to be casting from hit result dot get actor. And if this is successful, we can do interface. We can then call interact. So go ahead and do our compile, relaunch the game, and we should see a log down here. Yep. So what we have to do actually is create our item class real quick. I completely forgot about that, so real quickly, let's create our static mesh. So property, edit, and we'll do edit anywhere for now. Category equals escape room item. So we're going to do for declare use static mesh component mesh component in the .cpp, and the constructor, just do mesh component equals create default sub object. It's a template, so use static mesh component. Give the name of static mesh component, and then we set the root component to equal the mesh component. So that way, our actual mesh that we visually see is the root. So the only thing we have to do now is include components static mesh component.h, and then we can do our recompile. Okay, once we're back in, let's go to our content browser, public actors, and find our item. So for the time being, we're just going to create a blueprint class in the root, so our content folder, and I'm just going to call it bp underscore item. So let's give this mesh component, let's just give it the, we'll just do a 1 meter cube, save it, drag it out into the world. Let's watch the log. So we'll do this from the client and server. So walk over to it, I press F, and we still had an issue, and I completely forgot because we were doing that cheat protection. So on the server, we press F, line trace hits something, and it's destroying it. So we have that issue of server interact. This. So we pretty much want to do the same thing, copy the interface section and replace where we call destroy, replace it where we call our interact. And then the last thing, let's remove this where we alter the Z for our start, so we don't have that stupid little cheat test, whatever you would call it. So let's give this one more try. Press F on the client, line trace hits something, and it says interacting, and then the name of the item. And if you recall, when we overrode the interact function, we print out interacting, and then the name of the item. So that worked on the client. Let's test it on the server. Press F, and the exact same thing happened. So we are calling our interact function without having to do any like casting to a specific item. So for example, we could have a bunch of different actors. So we could have one for key, we could have an actor for a door, and none of these have to be derived from a single base class that we cast to. Instead, they all just inherit from our interactable interface. And because of this, that allows us to simply check if it implements the interface. If it does, we call interact. And if we want to make these blueprint callable for any reason, we could then do the exact same thing, but instead of casting, all we do is we check if it implements the interface like we did a little bit before, and then we call I interactable interface, execute, underscore, and then the function name, and we pass in the actor that we're trying to interact with it on, and in our case, that would be our item. So hopefully that kind of makes some sense there. So we have our pickup interface done, and for interaction, we have really nothing. So we have the basics so far. Now we just need to work on our pickup / hold, our dropping. That is supposed to be S, and that kind of stuff. So we just want to have basic interaction. So we can do all of these from our interface pretty much. So in our item class. So we're going to basically just write like a simple test functions for the item, which is item.h, and then we will move forward and have separate items. So like one for key, one for door, and that sort of thing. So stuff that we would interact with. So then one for like a cabinet and all that. So that way we can have very simple dedicated classes that don't inherit from one another and become a jumbled mess, because that is obviously can be a little annoying. And that's the way I used to do it. So it was just a lot of casting. So anyhow, that's going to be all for this video. And if you like what I'm doing and you want to support me, you can find a link to my Patreon down in the description below, where I have a team deathmatch series just for patrons, where we use Unreal Engine with C++ to create the team deathmatch game mode, just like Call of Duty, with custom spawning similar to that of the game, as well as a basic weapon customizer where you can add, remove attachments, and all that fun stuff. If you have any questions or anything like that about anything, feel free to join my Discord down below, and I'll try to help you out. So, take care.